Welcome back, Mistakes listeners, and Merry Christmas. This is episode 43. We recorded this episode on December 15th, 2015. We watched Disney's Sofia the First, the princess that sits in the middle of all our Disney princesses. You can actually follow us on Twitter at Parent Mistakes, and you can like us on Facebook at Parenting Mistakes. Sit back and enjoy the show. So Todd, I know that you guys are big Disney fans, but I think that over time we have discovered some of, say, the shadier parts of Disney, right? Like
Yes.
I just, over time I'm not so happy about Disney XD. I don't know, I'm not particularly happy about all the shows we've watched for their tween group, right?
Correct.
Right, and then they've kind of evolved some of that stuff into like ABC Family and so on and so forth. What I think I come in tonight and I go, the show that we watched, and this kind of segues into it, is Sofia the First, right?
Wow, an actual segue.
Yeah, and
Crazy.
well, it brings up for me, it brings up a very provocative statement, which is, and I'll just say it, Disney princesses.
Yes.
You just say that, and it's just almost a loaded statement in itself. If I go to Target, there literally is an entire aisle dedicated to Disney princesses. There is a message being said with Disney princesses. And I would almost dare say that it actually has nothing to do with real princesses, which we're going to learn in this episode coming up. But you've had two daughters who've actually gone through the whole entire cycle. I think Emma probably is one of the first kids to be introduced to Disney princesses, correct?
Yes.
So does she have old Disney princess costumes? She passed on some to Meg, stuff like that?
Yes, we've done aspects of that. I wouldn't say we've been over the top, but we've had aspects of that. We never
What?
really...
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, all right. I cannot put my finger on... Is the Disney princess... You're looking at my finger, aren't you?
It's very good on
For
a
those of you
podcast,
who don't
by the
know,
way.
we
Yeah, it's
Skype...
very good.
And
Yeah.
maybe you don't know this. Todd's in California, I'm in Washington, and we Skype over to do this show. And it sounds like we're in the same room. Actually, our shows in which we've done in the same room never sound as good as our Skype shows.
There's
Really,
something
'cause
there.
we got some hinkiness to it.
Yes.
But back to Disney princesses. Is there anything wrong with Disney princesses? Is it a marketing scheme that I'm just going to fall into the vortex of?
Oh, boy. That's Pandora's box.
It totally is. I'm not...
Well, you can go a lot of different directions with it. In an abstract sense, the princess probably fits into the same sort of genre as, say, any mythical character from a make-believe land that has sort of a utopian life.
Sure, it's a little girl's power fantasy.
Right.
Which is what we're going to discover today on Sofia the First.
Right. And from a parent standpoint, like, I look at my daughters as my princesses. I mean, those are like as if I'm going to protect them.
Mm-hmm.
I have my castle. Not that I'm the king.
Yeah.
I would not refer to myself as the king. My wife will not refer to me. I will refer to her as my queen on occasion. But particularly when they're little. I mean, I would call my youngest, Meg especially, I would say princess every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is sort of this sense that, I will put on my armor and get on my horse and charge out to meet the enemy to defend my princess's honor, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you want your kids to have a certain level of innocence in their childhood and kind of dreaming of that regal life. Now, is there a whole negative side to it in terms of an aristocracy and an elitism and a tyranny that can come from, that type of a leading system? Sure. You never see the common people in the princess situation, or at least not very often.
Right.
Although Disney loves the story where the common person becomes a princess.
Yep.
which sort of feeds into Sophia the First a little bit.
It does, but again, Disney Princesses in itself is the ultimate little girl power fantasy.
Right.
Again, I
So-
really come from nothing, right? Like in the real world, right? We're all common. I can't say that Kayleen has control over much. Maybe her room,
Right.
right? But even that, I tell her to clean, or
Right. I mean, to answer your initial question, is there anything wrong with it? It's not reality.
That's true.
You know, I mean, our children, as much as we can, again, protect them and, you know, treat them well and try to, you know, love them and cherish them, they are civilians. They are, you know, just sort of in the peasant class. Maybe not
Yeah.
peasant class, but I mean, they're just regular people.
Yes.
The chariot is not coming.
Well, unless you go to Target and buy it.
There you go.
Well, it is. It's a very, because we have entered into it quite a bit, right? We've got Elsa, we've got Anna, we've got,
Right.
that's kind of where we entered into Disney Princesses, was the whole Frozen thing. And there are people that I go to school with who are angry about Disney Princesses.
Sure.
Because it's basically creating an image or a thought that either A, is not attainable, or it's not a real world view whatsoever.
Well, and there is also, again, the whole critique of Disney in terms of how they portray the characters, their nationalities, the fact that they have done their best to sort of diversify the princesses over time. And while some may see that as a admirable thing, others will see it just as a marketing thing.
I will say this for as careful as I can be here. Every princess panders to a Western culture.
Sure, and they've taken sort of strong female characters and sort of tried to shoehorn them into sort of a princess idea.
Yes.
So they'll take like a Mulan character, which doesn't fit the standard ball gown princess sort of genre at all. And they'll sort of say, oh, and Mulan is a princess. Kind of.
Well, I think, see, it's got to be careful, because I think as we enter into talking about this particular show, the more I think about it, the more it is that we need to have a healthy discussion, or maybe even a disclaimer that, hey, we understand that there's this existence of the Disney princess marketing extravaganza that's going out there. Dare I say, it's also elitist in some capacity.
Yes.
If you got the money, you're in.
Right.
And Disney has completely exploited this whole Disney princess thing, and Sofia sits smack dab in the middle of it.
Right.
And that's another discussion of whether or not that's been effective or not, right?
Yes. So we did watch Sophia the First.
We did, and let's cut right into it, I suppose.
So this show, if I understand this correctly, based on what I saw, and again, we should tell our listeners, if you're just jumping in, we intentionally watch one episode of a show and talk about it, and we don't necessarily give thumbs up or thumbs down. We just sort of give our opinions on it. We talk about its appropriateness for kids and what the message is and how it sort of fits into a sort of media life, as it were. And we also know that when we watch one episode, particularly if we watch one episode that's just in the middle of a random season, we're going to miss out on a whole bunch of other stuff.
That is true.
So that's the pros and the cons of one episode.
Well, let me give you a little caveat. We've actually watched quite a bit of Sofia in our house.
Okay.
So I've had quite a few over-the-shoulder experiences, but I never have, and this is my admission, I've never really sat through a complete episode.
Right. And I've watched none.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with the character. I knew she existed, but that's about it. So Sophia she's kind of a add-on princess, if that's a fair statement. In
Well,
other
she's
words,
got the. Let me help you out here.
no, it's all right. I got it.
Okay. I've seen the intro episode. So I'm just saying.
Okay.
I know her origins.
All right. Well, yeah, her mother marries a king.
There you go.
And so,
piece of cake.
yeah, and so she's sort of I don't know, is she a step princess? Is that such a thing?
That's exactly what she is. She ends up having stepbrothers and stepbrother, a stepsister, and herself, right?
So if I again, well, this works because you know this and I don't. So as far as I can tell, correct me if I'm wrong, she's in sort of like this princess academy.
Yes.
Type things. It's like princess school.
Yeah.
So, and she hangs out with a whole bunch of other girls that appear to be around her age. And I suspect that these other princesses are either from, they're obviously from other parts of the world. They're trying their best to have a multi-ethnic princess collection.
Correct. I would say that the princesses that are in this particular royalty academy are kingdoms that are within reach of, say, their kingdom. So I'd say like 5 or 6 kingdoms. And I've watched other episodes in which they go to other castles and stuff like that. So the kingdoms are, say, quote-unquote, relatively small. But each one of them has a king, and it's sort of like each town has a castle with a king in it.
Right.
So, yeah. So if you're thinking about little towns, each town in this world has a castle and a king, has royalty. And that's exactly how this world exists. And so they actually have a centralized academy where all their children go to this royalty academy to learn how to be leaders.
Yes. So in this particular episode, I'll go ahead and do the plot if that's all right.
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. This is typically your show, but...
No. That's right. I'm the outsider perspective here. So This particular episode, there is apparently going to be a princess test. And they don't really explain the test. They don't really explain what it's going to be. They just say, there's going to be a test. This is when it is. Be there. And of course, Sofia is really sort of treated as the innocent, clueless princess.
Yep.
The other princesses are all like, oh, we got this. We'll explain it to you. And they start talking about it's kind of ironic in some ways. Some of the stuff that we talked about earlier in this podcast about sort of the princess image.
Sure.
I mean, it's almost like Disney is sort of tongue-in-cheek critiquing itself in some ways. Because the other princesses are talking about hair and dresses and accessories and
poise
and stuff
Gowns.
Like that.
Yeah.
I mean, all stuff that you would expect. This is essentially sort of a princess finishing school.
Yes.
So you'd expect all of that stuff. But we know where this is going with the plot. We know that type of stuff is going to be sort of pushed aside as less than important.
Correct.
So they're on their way to this test, and Sofia is stopped. Well, actually, several princesses are stopped. And by the way, folks, for those of you who read the Bible,
I had the same thought.
Oh,
I'm
my
like,
goodness.
where they just pulled this right out of there. Crazy.
This is straight. This is the Good Samaritan story.
It is.
If you know the Good Samaritan story, it is textbook.
It is.
Good Samaritan story. I mean, straight down to the types of people that pass by, what they say, that sort of thing. So basically, there is a woman who is she's the librarian.
She's the librarian.
She is having trouble carrying books home.
She's a pauper. That's the other thing too. She's not magical. She's just a commoner.
So she asks 2 princesses, "Hey, can you help me carry the books?" And 2 of them go, "Oh golly, sorry, I got."
Well, we're late. They actually have reasons. We're late for the test. We don't want to miss the test.
We literally got to go to the test. Sorry, can't help you. And she's very nice about it. Go, "Oh, no problem. I understand." Sofia comes by, does the same thing. Sofia is asked to help, and she of course hesitates.
Yep.
Because she wants to be a good, dutiful princess and go to the test and be on time, and so she says, "All right, I'll help you out."
Right.
And we know where this is going. It sets up the rest of the episode where she has all these obstacles to help this lady get home. Walking through the mud and, crossing rivers. I mean, all of a sudden it turns into Oregon Trail.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, she's asked to go above and beyond.
Right.
Similar to the Good Samaritan.
Right. And throughout the episode, the librarian keeps setting her up. Keeps saying, "Oh, it's just around the bend. Oh, it's just over there. Oh, just for a moment. Oh, you can make your test. Don't worry about it. You'll get there."
Speaking of which, you should know this. The 3 ladies that are teaching the academy are from Sleeping Beauty. They are the 3
Yes.
fairies from
Yes.
Sleeping Beauty.
Yes.
And the entire time you know that, because you watch the other plot, which is the girls actually taking the test, and it's being led by only 2 of the fairies.
Dun dun dun.
Fairy godmothers. Please
Right.
forgive me. And the other one is never seen. You're like, okay, so we know that the librarian is actually in disguise testing Sophia. Now, as a kid, you might not know that.
Right.
You just think that Sophia's just making some hard choices in light of, I really should be at this test.
Right.
But I'm here for the greater good.
So, spoiler alert, she gets the librarian home. By this time, her dress is ruined. Her fan has floated down the river.
Well, that's important because those are aspects of the finishing school tests that
Right.
are being ruined as
Right.
Sophia is helping the librarian. I just wanted you to get that plot because every choice that Sophia makes is another step away from actually even passing or getting to the princess test.
Right. And once they arrive at the librarian's house, it is magically transformed back to the
Academy,
school,
yeah.
or the academy where the test is. And of course, all the other girls receive silver stars, and she receives a special trophy because she.
It's like when Christ says, who is the best of these? This is almost
right.
literally like right off the pages,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Well, these were all good choices, but who was the best, right?
Right.
Well, it was the Samaritan, right?
Because she shows compassion, and
The other girls passed the test, right? They showed
They did.
toys. They showed, what quote unquote a princess should look like, some of the things that you might say at tea time, right? It's not like they failed, but who of these is the best? Well, of course, Sophia.
right. I get the message, and in theory, I struggled with this a little bit.
Sure. Right.
Because what is the message? I mean, I get the idea of compassion. Sure. Yeah, the message is compassion. If there's someone in need, help them. Is the other message, don't worry about your obligations?
No, the message is that Sophia the First is subversive. She's a true radical.
Well, and in some ways, I mean, this is the other thing that Disney does, and this goes back to your original question about princesses. They do create sort of these personalities that are just so perfect.
Sure.
Because Sophia is really in some ways portrayed as clueless. Clueless and sort of semi-insecure, and yet has this internal, I don't want to say drive, but an internal energy that just compels her to do the right thing.
And that is
whatever that right thing is.
And watching all the shows, this is a consistent theme for her.
Okay. Which I would assume.
Right. I'd like to watch some of the season 2 episodes because I know that in season 1 it's really strong that Sophia is a fish out of water and that she truly has, she's got the savior complex, right? She's just this, I don't want to say Pollyanna type character because it's not overly positive, but I'm going to do the right thing.
It kind of is kind of Pollyanna. I mean, just sort of happy-go-lucky, wanting to make other people happy, and yet not just a straight-up pleaser.
Right.
Like, she can make decisions. Because that's kind of the contrast of her character in this episode, where she feels torn. They make a big deal of it, but then it seems very easy for her to just kind of go, oh, well, I'll just help you. I'll just still do the right thing.
Yeah, exactly. You're a kid.
Right. And throughout the episode, the lady keeps going, you know what, you've done enough. You go on. And that's just the more realistic scenario.
Yeah.
Where you sort of say, hey, look, I'd love to help you out here. I got to go. I got to go. I have a test. I'm sorry. I wish I could help you more. I can come back after the test maybe and help you out, or I can call my friend and they can help you out.
So let me tell you what's really clear, what's really obvious to me, because there I think we're finding some real deep meaning in Sofia. I think they've taken a great biblical story and really crafted it well, and it's a great lesson for kids. But if we're going back to what Disney princesses are, what Disney is trying to say in this episode is that I want to say this, a Disney princess is not just about being prim and proper, but it's also showing compassion and being a friend to people in need. And that to me is not what a real world princess would ever do.
Correct. Well,
but a Disney princess does.
Right. And here's the other piece of that is she definitively gets recognized for this.
Yeah.
At the end of the episode. And if you want to follow the biblical argument all the way through, the biblical statement would be, hey, you do this stuff for people, but you don't do it for your own glory, and you don't do it for your own reward. And in some cases, you don't even tell people about it. You just do it because you're called to do it. That's it. So we kind of want to have both ways, don't we?
We do.
We want Sofia to be this compassionate person that, quote unquote, does the right thing, whatever that means. But we also love the idea that she got a trophy at the end, and we love the idea that all of her competing princesses, which are all the competition is very muted.
Mm-hmm.
They all sort of gather around her and just sort of say, hey, you're amazing, we'd love to be you at the end.
Sure.
Which, again, is nice, and sometimes we have people that are happy for us, but I don't know. I don't know if that's just my jaded adult side coming through.
Yeah, this is typically the way you swing. You are very grounded in reality in a lot of these things. But I appreciate that because I think it's true. Like life does not function this way. This is always kind of like Todd's bulking against entertainment, right?
Well, and I think the idea is, some of those princesses are going to be happy for her and admire her. Some of those princesses are going to be like, hey, look, I actually showed up for this test. I actually followed the rules. And you've got Miss Happy-Go-Lucky just wandering off in the forest here, and you give her a trophy?
Right. No, I mean, if you looked at another twisted message in it, is that everybody does everything right. No one's wrong.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, and that is kind of an interesting message to sort of say. Yeah, if you were late for Mr. Hibbard's U.S. News and World Report quiz on a Friday morning in high school,
because I was helping, Mr. Hagen because he broke his leg.
No, or better yet, you're like, oh, well, gee, Mr. Hibbard, there was this homeless person at the end of the freeway, and I took him to McDonald's and I got him a meal and I listened to their story. So can I have an A on the quiz? Right. He'd go, well, that's great that you did that, Dave. I really appreciate that, and you got an F because you didn't take the quiz.
Okay, it's a kid's show.
I know.
Let's try to reel it in.
I know.
Because in comparison to a lot of the other shows, like you usually ask me how did I like it or what did I think about it, so I actually liked it. Right?
Actually, and I like it too.
I found it intriguing. I know that there are other shows that amulet that she wears around her neck is actually like a key port.
Okay.
Which she can request, say, Sleeping Beauty to actually appear, or Aurora, or she can ask for Snow White to come, or she's actually had Maloon. I'm such a Mulan has shown up, right?
Maloon's her cousin.
Ariel. Ariel has shown up. That other princesses are able to port to her and give her advice from time to time, which is just this awesome marketing scheme.
Oh,
right?
yeah, cross-pollination.
Sofia connects. It's a very Marvel Universe type deal, right?
Yeah.
In this Marvel Universe that we live in, Sofia completely sits in the middle of that, right?
And again, it's good, it's pure, it's innocent, but at the end, I will say, it's Disney.
It is, but I found the story surprisingly intriguing, and I was glued to it the entire time.
It's an interesting story. You always have to approach Disney with a certain expectation, a certain filter, particularly with the princess thing.
Yeah. I'm not even sure if we've come to resolve on the princess thing, because my initial question was, Is it good? Is it bad? What is it? And I'm not
Right.
even sure because I still feel the trepidation around it. I feel like there is some grand marketing scheme that's occurring here, or is it just downright wholesome goodness and hey, kids, just be Elsa for the next 2 years and you're fine, right?
Now who's jaded?
I don't know,
Don't
right?
Don't accuse me of being overly grounded there.
I don't know how to answer that question because this episode is rough because it would have been great if it was just fluff, and it ain't.
Right.
It's not just fluff. It actually had a biblical message for crying out loud, right?
Well, we may have to return to a part 2 of
Sophia.
the impact of the princess idea on our children. So,
Well, I mean, okay, so if we
To
really
be
take this,
continued.
No, wait. If we really take this to fruition, season 7, whatever, this is a kid show. Season 3, at the end of it, Sophia ends up being queen and she gives up the kingdom because it's the right thing to do.
right, she just gives it to the people.
She gives it to the people and it becomes America.
That's right. It becomes a republic.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know.
And she just sort of joins, and she goes and works for a nonprofit organization.
Yeah.
All right, folks, you can follow us on Twitter, Parent Mistakes, or you can like us on Facebook, Parenting Mistakes. And we are on iTunes, in addition to Podomatic. And that's about it.
Yeah.
So enjoy your princess experience.